My mother had a thing about hats. She would never ever dream of going to church without wearing a hat. It was incredibly important to her. I remember one day she was absolutely horrified when one church member, a woman obviously, went to church without a hat on. Now I was in my teens then, a teenage boy, and this seemed to be a very strange thing to be so worried about. It seemed to me that Christianity was asking us to think about much more important things. So I thought in this video I'd talk about what Christian priorities should be if we're going to follow the morality of the New Testament. And I actually think there are some very clear verses. And the most obvious one is Jesus' call, love your neighbour as yourself. That love is there as the most important thing. And Paul agrees. So you know the hymn in 1 Corinthians 13. If I speak in the tongues of men or of angels, but do not have love, I am only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. And that goes on, doesn't it, about the need for love. Jesus actually spells out clearly the sort of actions he's expecting us to take in the parable of the sheep and the goats. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me. I was in prison, and you came to visit me. Okay, so those are what Christian priorities should be. But I worry about little things like hats. Why do we focus so much on those little things? And that reminds me of Jesus' other parable. You know, the one about the gnats and the camels. And, you know, you blind guides, he says to the Pharisees. You know, you strain out a gnat from your drink, but you swallow a camel. So he's talking about people getting things completely out of proportion and forgetting the really important things that he's expecting of us. So here's a list of things that I think we should not be focusing on. Well, obviously number one is hats. And does it really matter what day of the week we call the Sabbath and worship on? Oh, do we need to focus so much on masturbation? I was worried about one person on the internet, on Facebook, who was saying, have I got to speak in tongues to be saved? That's not the important thing that Jesus is talking about. And does it really matter which denomination we belong to, so long as we're following what Jesus says? Adult baptism or child baptism, how important is it? I came across one church which refuses to have any musical instruments. All the singing is unaccompanied. But because they think it's not biblical, it's not important. That's not what Jesus is asking, demanding of us. And women preaching almost pulled the church to pieces. And really, is it important? And dare I mention it, how important is it whether you love a man or a woman? As long as you're loving. So my plea here is please look at your priorities. Let's talk about the things Jesus was talking about. Helping those who are hungry. Those who need to drink. Strangers in our midst and how we welcome them. All of those things about how we show love. That, surely, is Christian morality.